So we're coming up to the end of another year and we've just had winter solstice. So if you're anything like me, you're probably feeling a fair bit more introspective at the moment. And this is pretty normal for this time of year. It's like always the time to just go a bit more inwards. People like putting the tools down and just saying, let's have a little breather for a minute before we kick things off again. But there's something else about this year which makes it a bit special. You may have this feeling that something big is coming to an end, but it's hard to tell what exactly that is and what is about to begin. Well, that could be something to do with the fact that numerologically, this 2025 is a number 9, which signifies the end of a cycle, the end of a 9-year cycle. So that's where we're at right now. You know, this is the last part of the 9th year. So we're just about to step into a universal year number 1. And that basically means right now, it's quite a significant moment. And maybe you can feel that in the air. It certainly feels like it to me. And it's a great time right now to reflect back on the past 9 years. Look back and to see just how far you've come. Because, when I think back 9 years ago, for me, it's just crazy to think how much my life has changed. I find like I'm almost unrecognizable to myself in so many ways when I look back 9 years. So in 2017, I was kind of in the peak of, a certain way of life, a lifestyle where if things just were not working for me at all. I was drinking too much. I was really quite depressed, very anxious, taking drugs, doing all kinds of things I shouldn't be doing, obviously. And I wasn't in a good way. I was completely asleep, really, in many respects. I had no spiritual understanding whatsoever at this point. And yeah, it wasn't long after that I had the dark night of the soul, and the year after that, a spiritual awakening. I then took myself on a one-way trip not a one-way trip, but a big first adventure listening to my intuition, which took me to Peru for a few months. I then came back to London and, I did something quite out of the ordinary for me, which was to live with random people. So I actually went and lived with random people in London, and, my whole life changed by creating a new family there, and it was a really beautiful thing. But then 2 years passed, and I felt the call to go on a big one-way trip, and that was to Central America and South America. And there I really deepened myself in my spiritual practices. I went really, really deep with meditation and silence, very inward focused, and I really got to know myself in the pure essence very well. But eventually that trip led me back to England. I felt the call to go home. And back in England, I spent, on that trip that I had, I also met my partner, which was a big key. I didn't know if she was going to become my partner for the last 3 years, but I met her there. And then I went back to England for a while after that. And yeah, in England, it was like I just had some work to do, really. It's like I spent some time really focusing on what I want to do in my life. And at the time, I still thought it was writing and directing. So I really studied very hard in these aspects. I really went for it. Then I ended up going to India with my partner. I studied to become a yoga teacher in the north of India, which was a really beautiful experience. Then it was back to England again, 2 years. And in this time is when I finally started to come into my calling. But first, I had to go all in on one of my dreams, which was to direct commercials. So that whole timeline just fell away after, what I perceived to be a little bit of a failure that I had in that regard. But that only showed me how I didn't actually want it anyway. Actually, there was something else I really wanted. Yeah, and then that eventually, yeah, took me to really start honing in on this new line of work that I now do, which is helping other people to transform. And I left England. I left England on a one-way trip again. This time feels even more long-term, this time with my partner. And then I started my YouTube channel. And now I'm here talking to you. And like, that's a quick summary of the past 9 years for me. And honestly, that's like the outside parts of it. Those are the bits which are, you know, objectively true. But the bigger shifts that have happened, rather than just the events that have happened, really it's me and an identity that has shifted. And you may notice this well in yourself, that a 9-year cycle is a huge time for your identity to shift dramatically. And for me, the main shift that's happened for me was obviously from the beginning, it was the awakening process in the past 9 years, but also identifying with more like being a seeker, and also parts of me that needed some deep attention. And so that part of my identity, I feel now has shifted as I shift more into a more sort of a stage of embodiment and leadership. And I think that's you know, probably a cycle a lot of people are going through. And I have heard often that these awakenings on the planet, they come in waves. And so it's probably quite a lot of people waking up around the same time I was, and there's probably a lot of people waking up now. And this is often why the work we do over a 9-year cycle is so important, because we become the people to help those who are waking up in the next wave. And so as we come to the end of this 9-year cycle, it's really a great time just to close loops. Anything that's still open emotionally, spiritually, or even practically, just to bring in those loops to a close. Because it's not so much a time for big change, big like launches or big drastic quantum leaps right now. It's a time to kind of tend to the soil and prepare the ground for what's to come. We don't need to be focused so much on what we're about to create, but just to kind of look at what we've already done and to reflect on the changes that have occurred, and just to embody deeper what we've already been through. In many ways, it feels like the exhale before a new breath. And so there are certain themes we can recognize in this moment. It's like we can see how there's probably like relationships and roles we're playing, identities that we're existing within. They're all starting to come to an end, or they already have come to an end. It's just a beautiful time just to reflect on this and not feel the need to push yourself hard right now, but just to focus on how far you've already come. It's also a time when old wounds, patterns of behavior, patterns of thought might well be resurfacing, not to be repeated this time though, but to be finally let go of. You may feel that there are certain things that you're starting to really notice within yourself that you just haven't got time for anymore. There's certain patterns that have repeated in your life where you're just tired of it and you're kind of done with it. You start to recognize that you just don't need them anymore. But that's because your awareness has shifted so much in this time frame that you're actually starting to see these patterns for what they are. You're starting to see these parts of yourself more clearly. And you're also starting to have the awareness that you can let them go and celebrate, you know, the good, the bad. We recognize that it's all had its purpose. And we rest a little. Give ourselves a break. We have equal parts gratitude We honor the gratitude, but we also honor the grief. We make space for all of it at this time. And it's such a wonderful opportunity right now just to spend that time reflecting over where you've come from and now where you are. Because I guarantee it's going to have been a big change in 9 years. And if you're watching this video, it's very likely that you're also on the same kind of spiritual awakening journey, and you're also really started to come into who you really are, the truth of what you really are. And so that itself is just the biggest of all of the transitions, the biggest of all the shifts. So it's just really nice just to recognize that within ourselves, be grateful for it, and yeah, just be excited, because I am hyped about where the next 9 years is going to be. When I look back and see how much has changed in 9 years just gone, I'm so excited to see what the next 9 years has to bring. Because honestly now, the main difference between me 9 years ago and me now is that when I look ahead, I feel limitless. But 9 years ago, I felt like there was no hope. That's how drastic 9 years can be. So, I'm wishing you all the best for the end of this cycle, and for really looking forward to what is going to be an amazing next cycle to come. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please drop me a like, a comment. Love to hear from you. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.